On this episode of the Wealth Alchemist podcast, you have a solo episode with me, yours truly, Gary. This is one of the most personal, raw, real, and vulnerable shows I have ever done. Come and listen in to hear the journey of this really big transition happening in my life. The show is loaded with massive lessons that will surely awaken you to a deeper call. Have you ever considered what your life would look like if you truly allowed yourself to have everything you desire? It's a bumpy road to get there. And you will most definitely have to let go of that which doesn't serve you. But really, life is all about the journey. So please have a listen in and let this soak into you. From my heart to yours. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Wealth Alchemist podcast. My name is Carrie Norley. I am the host of this amazing show. And today I am here, real, raw, and vulnerable on my own, sharing a very, very personal story. It feels very big to be here actually sharing this today. And I have no notes. I am just going to come and share from my heart some big things that are happening in my life. So to cut right to the chase, with endings always come new beginnings. And this conversation today is to share that after 17 years, my husband and I are separating. You know, it's a funny thing. I think sometimes being a person on a platform like this, someone who has a social media experience and has their voice go out to countries. And, you know, at this point, I think I'm at 91 countries around the world and, you know, books leaving into international places and all sorts of things. And it's interesting sometimes when we have to share these vulnerable parts of our lives. And I really wanted to come on and just speak from my heart around this, because I think it's been a huge journey to get to this point. And I know the amount of people that I have spoken to that are or were or are in similar situations to where I was. And I just want to come and share, because I think it's a really big thing. It's a really big thing for a couple to go through. So this is for all of you out there who just want to hear my story and hear where this is at and what's been happening for me and our experience. And also for those of you who are out there who are sitting on the fence around this, you know, that are looking at your marriages or your long-term relationships and questioning, is this really the right thing? Sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's time to say goodbye. And so that's what this is about today. So I have spent, and I want to do a little bit of an honoring to my husband as well. I've spent 17 years loving this man. And these last few years, they've been really tricky. And he's a really, really, really amazing person. And I think this can be sometimes really, really tricky when we start to look at our relationships, right? And we can look at a human being that we've walked this path with for so long and know, like, I know in my heart, he's a good man. He's a good man. And I'm a good woman. And yet sometimes people come into our life for a season and a reason, and the season ends. And that's where we're at. We, for the last few years, had tried in many different ways, in many different capacities, to shift the struggles in our relationship, I will say, the battles that we were having, that ultimately, and I think this is something that we really need to look into, that ultimately are family conditioning. And I say this to anyone who's out there with, like, please hear any of this story and know that there is no shame. I hold no shame for us. I hold no shame for you. There is no judgment. This is conditioning. Like, this is how things play out in a way that on many levels can be very disruptive for our lives. And in this situation, most people, when we come together as young people and don't have any awareness of these types of things, we come together and we play out our family patterns, right? And so sometimes those family patterns are really freaking amazing and beneficial and awesome. And sometimes those family patterns suck. And we each have them, all of us in our families. And so with Hugh and I, we were playing out family patterns that did not serve us. And really what it came down to is we'd spiral each other downwards instead of spiraling each other up. And it felt really shit for both of us. And so it wasn't that outside of the relationship, we couldn't do really amazing things and whatever, and all these beautiful experiences, but within each other, we just got into this place where we weren't bringing out the best in each other. And that's really hard when it's your life partner and it's, you know, a big part of your life. And so ultimately, in the end, you know, it came down to, there's going to be somebody out there for each of us that can make, like, that love becomes an easier experience, that we can lift each other up and we can spiral up. And after a couple of years of therapy and all the things, it finally just got to the point where we chose to move on. And I want to share this again because I know I'm not alone. There's a lot of, and I'm going to say recently, there's a lot of women I have been speaking to as I've been going through the separation, because realistically, whilst you are hearing this right now on the podcast, this has been going on for years, but in this last specifically 6 to 9 months, we've really been down the rabbit hole of this. And so this isn't new for us. It's new for the world to hear. And our closest friends, the people who have been around, have known that we've been going through this. And as I speak to more and more people in person and things like that, what I'm finding is I'm not alone. I know that there are so many of you out there. There are so many of you out there who are, and I say this with a lot of love to my husband, right? Like I really do, that are miserable. We were both miserable, right? I was doing things that were hurting him. He was doing things that were hurting me. And we were both miserable in our home together. And sometimes it was just like, even just the lack, right? This lack of connection, the lack of intimacy. And I hear this a lot over and over again in relationships and marriages through my work with clients and through my friends and just through relationships that I hear about, as I'm moving through life. And I want to say this to you, that I know for me, as a lot of people don't do this because of some reason, right? You don't separate because you think that there's going to be some of this problem or that problem or whatever. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. What am I going to do with the kids? How are the kids going to react? This is a big thing that I've had a lot of people since I've put a post up on Facebook last week around this, last week. And a lot of the replies that came were, what about the kids and this and that and the other? And I really want to speak to that here because, again, in generational patterns, what we were doing was teaching them patterns of love that was not healthy. And I just finally looked at my kids and I was just like, this is not the way I want you to be raised. I don't want you to think that this is what love is, because I knew that it wasn't a healthy relationship. I knew. So you have the choice when we start to look at our kids. What am I actually teaching by staying? Because a lot of people will say, I'm going to stay for my kids, right? And I had these people who would guilt and shamed me for not staying for my kids. And I said, my response, and you can go and check out the post on Facebook, was I am leaving, or we are separating. I'm not leaving. We are separating for our kids. For me, that's one of the reasons, because I want them to see what I feel we can experience as love. I want them to see a different experience. I want them to experience a different experience of love. I want them to know the magic and the beauty of what can unfold when you are in a beautiful, whole, loving relationship. And then they can move forward and have their own lives of that as well. And so for me, it is as much for my kids as much as it is hard for our kids, right? And that doesn't make any of this easier for anyone, even this decision, right? Doesn't make it easier. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden I have any of the less fears that any other person would have in this situation, from the financial, for me, like considering how I'm going to be as a single mom and having the house to look after by myself and having the kids to look after by myself and all the things that come with this transition. I've had to sit with it too. And I know, like I am grateful for the friends that have been around these last couple of years as I have nut this out and I have stayed the course. And for me personally, I wanted to look under like every nook and every cranny and every shadow. So for those of you who are still in it and doing this, I get it. I honor you. I see you. And I'm also going to say, right, like for me, I looked under everything and I knew for me, by the time that we completed this cycle for ourselves, I wanted to know that I had done as much work as I possibly could within this relationship to make sure that I wasn't going to go out and do the same thing again. And I think this is, again, the generational patterns, right? Like we need to look at what is it within me that created this. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't actually freaking pay attention to when we start to leave relationships. And this is how we recreate the same thing, different face, different, body in front of you, but the same story. And ultimately, a really, really, really deep dive that I have done this last year, almost to the month, this last year, starting June last year, was I did this quantum clear with my friend Lori, who's on here. We talked about it. In Lori Kinsey. She has actually 2 episodes on here, and we talked about financial abuse. I highly recommend that you go look at those. They would probably be in the, 40s or something. Just go look for Lori Kinsey. It's 2 of the most powerful episodes on this podcast, without a doubt. And we were talking about abuse, financial abuse, but abuse in general, and the cycle of abuse. And what we had been working on in my life personally was the archetype of the abuser, the archetype of the abuser and the victim, right? And in relationships, and I think this is a really, like we said it there, and I'll say it here again, this is a really hard pill to swallow sometimes, is in toxic relationships, not only are, like for me, not only was I a victim of really nasty things, I was also the person who did that, right? Like when we were in these positions and we're playing out these old patterns, oftentimes we've been taught toxic ways of loving each other. And we have attachment issues, which actually there's a session with, I don't think Leisha and I got into attachment stuff. So I'll have to do a podcast on attachment stuff. We have attachment issues. We have trauma bonds. We have all sorts of things that happen within these relationships that keep us playing out toxic patterns. And it's not necessarily like either person is a bad person. It's just what we've learned to do and how we've been conditioned to show up. And if we don't know any differently, then we can't change that. And so I invite you, to really start looking. And again, actually this abuse thing, I've shared this on this podcast as well. Like this is it's been a long journey. So I feel like I'm just sharing all the different things as much as coming to me to share. But I also reconnected with my ex-partner that I'd had before my husband. We were living together and it was a very volatile, very, very verbally volatile and emotionally abusive relationship. And I left in a hurry. And actually Hugh and I got together at that point and we reconnected last year and did immense amount of forgiveness work. We are now very good friends, which I never thought would have ever happened. And through that forgiveness work, this is such powerful work. And I swear, like Lori and I have had this conversation. It is very, 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 very rare for two human beings to actually get to meet again in the way that we have and been able to do the healing that we have and have true deep forgiveness. And we are now both supporting each other through really big things in life at the moment and very good friends to each other. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. And through that, I looked at that pattern too. Like what was happening in that relationship? What was happening in all the abusive relationships that I've had in my life? How was I showing up to receive that? How was I showing up on the other side of it? Right? Because I've hurt the other people as well. And when we can really own into how I showed up to create that dynamic, then I can choose, how do I want to show up again? Right. And sometimes even in the victim mode, which this is like, if you are being very, very hurt and abused, like there is victim in that. Right. And this is not to like be a conversation that says that it's okay, that's your fault. None of that. Right. None of that. And where can I take responsibility? Where can I show up and take a little bit of this responsibility in how I've allowed this? So some of it being, well, I didn't put boundaries up. I didn't put, I wasn't clear in certain things that I wanted, or I let things happen that I didn't want to happen. These, I've been a people pleaser. All of these different aspects of myself then play into how the relationship doesn't come out equal or whole, or each person isn't whole because we become codependent on each other, and it's messy and it's unhealthy. And so if we can start to look at how we create that and how the dynamics create that, we can start to show ourselves how we pull away from doing those things, so that when we go into the next relationship, I can say, well, I don't want to be the kind of person who is a people pleaser. I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet and I'm going to show up and say, this is what I desire and I don't want to bend. Like there's many ways that we can then choose to show up differently. And it's in the awareness that we make these choices and these changes. So I invite anyone that's out there listening to this at this point, that's also going through this experience, or that's sitting on the sideline, like looking at your life. And I know I've looked some of you in the eyes lately, and I have seen the pain, the misery, the stories that we make up as breadcrumbs to hold on to just this little thing, right? If I hold on to just this little piece, that's this one little part that's amazing in this relationship, because we do at the end, like we want to hold on to it. And I get it. Like, trust me, I've been here, I've been doing it. Right. And we hold on to it. Like this little breadcrumb is going to make it worth everything to stay here and see if we can fix this and change this. And at some point you realize that breadcrumb isn't enough. You realize that you want more. And this is such a conversation around, do you let yourself have that desire, right? Or do we stay trapped in fear? Because ultimately the reason that most of us stay in these marriages or these long-term relationships that don't work for us on both sides is fear. Fear of how am I going to pay for the things? How am I going to manage the kids? How are we going to do this? Da, da, da. Where are we going to live? Blah, blah, blah. All the things. There's so much. It's a big fucking deal. No doubt about it. Right. And if we continue to play into the fear, then we just get more of that cycle. We get more of that fear. And so I chose, like I have been for the last few years, just choosing that there is a man in this world who will meet me, where I am, where I desire to be on all levels, the mental, energetic, emotional, spiritual, physical level. Did I say them all? Mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, physical, astral. You can go there too. And he's out there. And I've known for a long time that there was somebody in the world that would meet me and that would love me exactly for who I am and allow me to be in my fullest expression and find it amazing and find it really fucking easy to love me. And that I would be able to I would be able to love him in the most amazing, beautiful, whole way. And we could both be sovereign beings and come to this relationship as full, whole people and meet each other and support each other in a very healthy dynamic. And so I've just held that is true and that gets to exist. And like anything in your dreams, you take a step towards it. And I kept telling you, like, this is going to happen for me, whether it's you or it's another human being. This is what I desire and this is what I will have. And I'm an epic manifester, so I will have it. And whether it, if you want to show up for it, then awesome. If not, then that's okay too. And either way, we can have what we want. Right. And so this is another question into, are you allowing yourself to live your fullest desires? Are you allowing yourself to say yes to the things that you really, really, really want in your life? Are you allowing yourself to receive all of the love, the abundance, the joy, the bliss? Or are you blocking yourself from that by choosing to stay stuck? And a lot of people here, this is another thing that I am noticing as well, because at this point in time, I'm not the only person in a relationship that had an intimacy go at this point in time. And sex starts to not be as frequently. And so a lot of people, and we had a conversation about this, actually, I had a conversation with Leah Newman. We talked about sexless relationships. You can go check that one out too. It was a really interesting conversation. We talked about your sexual blueprints, which is amazing. And so as that starts to go, like, your life force can go. For me, I have shared even across this podcast that didn't mean that my life force energy or my sexual energy was not being curated, is a word I think I want to use, because I have my own practice, right? I have my own practice. But imagine what happens when you have somebody who's not meeting you. And for me, it definitely meant that I wasn't in the fullest expression in my currency and my energy. And I can feel the shift already for myself, even in just the energetic cords being cut between us around these things, and how I can step more fully into that. And when we step more fully into our sexual expression, our sexual channel, our sensual energy, all of this is our magnetism, right? This is our life force energy. And if we're dulling it because in the relationship it can't exist, it doesn't exist, right? Then we're dulling ourselves. And so to me, the more that I have stepped away from this, the more that I'm allowing myself to feel and experience that fullness of this life force energy that runs through me. You do not need another partner for that to experience at all. Sure, you can also have it with another partner. But when we allow ourselves to experience the fullness of ourselves, things open. And even in the freedom of, for both you and I, there is freedom in this marriage ending. And even in that, for me, I am allowing myself to allow my heart to crack open more, to allow myself to receive love, allow myself to call the right person in or people, allow myself to ultimately experience the fullness of life and joy and love. And, I talk about this. This has been a journey, you guys, since I wrote my book, The New Wealth, right? The New Wealth, Magnetize Abundance, Hold Your Wealth and Leave a Legacy. In this book, I talk about this, that we are going to move. We are currently, and many of you who are listening know this, we are moving into, the re-evolution of wealth, but it's the re-evolution of the earth, right? The new earth, the new wealth, this 5D reality. And in this way, we can have infinite love, bliss, abundance, joy, peace, anything that you desire, right? It's there. It's there to tap into. And the thing that you get to do though, and this is what happened when I wrote this book, like seriously, if you've not gotten this book, it changed my life. Not because I wrote it. Yes, I wrote it, right? Not because it's helped me in my business, not because I get to get the message out, which all of that is still true. But the reason it changed my life is because it changed my life because I actually embodied the principles in this book. And there was things when I wrote this book that I thought, I could be better at that. I could be deeper in that. I could allow myself to crack open more. And I knew that as I walked the path, that one of the things that was not serving me to the highest, again, because we kept spiraling each other down, was my marriage. And so I had to let it go. And this is the path. And a lot of people, and by the way, it was mutual. Like we had conversations. This was not something that I was like, you're an asshole and I'm leaving you. It was like, these are the things that I'm at. He's like, this is where I'm at. And we ultimately decided that we couldn't meet each other's needs and we would move on with each other. We move on from each other. And at the same time, though, this book was a huge catalyst for me looking at things and going, is this really what I want? Can I really get where I want to go in this relationship as it is? And the answer was no. And can I really tap into that infinite love? No, not in this relationship, not in the way that it's been. And we just couldn't make that better. And so for me, it meant this is the work. These are the points in time when, especially when you are on a mission, a fucking big mission on this planet. And I know there are some of you who are listening to this that are on a mission and you're halfway in your mission because you wouldn't even do this. You wouldn't do this. You would not separate for the fact that you know that your mission is bigger than you and that you can't complete your mission if you're in this relationship. It's literally what ended up happening for me. I can't complete this mission if I was in this relationship. I couldn't be here showing up in this podcast all the time, sharing all these things, knowing that there was stuff happening that was not serving me and not serving him and that was tearing us down. And so it had to go this way. And so I say this because sometimes we have to do things that are really fucking uncomfortable in our dreams in order to create them. And in order to allow ourselves to have that which we desire, we have to let go of that what's not working. And so part of that was actually suffering. Like, why am I creating more suffering in my life than I have to create? Right? Why am I? And I don't know, there might be, and I'm sure there's going to be a different type of suffering, maybe, that comes on the other side of this, right? There's going to be some other hurdles that I have to overcome, but it feels different. I feel free. I feel like I get to make these choices in a way that I haven't been able to in a really long time, maybe ever, actually. And it's been a really beautiful experience of allowing myself to surrender into this deep, deep, deep unknown. And with as much as I'm letting go of, because my relationship and my marriage is one of the things I'm currently letting go of, but there are many things in my life that are dropping away right now. And I wrote a post today actually saying, like, it's weird. Sometimes I feel like I'm sitting in the eye of a tornado almost, right? This in the center of that tornado. And like everything is spinning around me. And like, there's amazing fucking some of the best things that have ever happened in my life showing up in my world right now. And some of the hardest things in my life that have showed up in my world right now. And I was actually thinking today about, many of you heard the story around these bipolar tendencies that I've been dealing with in my life. And these last 2 years, how I've been doing all this work to figure out how to hold these polars, how to be in this experience of my life without it letting destroy me. And this experience is such a beautiful reflection for me of like, I actually can still feel grounded and centered while chaos is going on around me. And I think ultimately it's part of the human experience, and I remember when I first started on the journey of this, I had one of my mentors, Vanessa Diamond Sumner. She said to me, Carrie, bipolar is like almost bullshit. It was her. It wasn't bullshit. That's not the word she used, but it was like, and please don't quote me on that because it isn't the words that she used, but it was like, you're always going to have polars. So it's really, how do we learn to deal with them? How do we learn to be in them? How do we learn to experience life and not let them run our life? And sitting in this, it's a real reflection of that in how far I've come that I can make it through this. At the beginning, I can tell you it was not peaceful. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of all sorts of stuff going on, a lot of panic and all things. But I'm now at this place where I can find peace in it. And it is a huge part of the manifestation process. How can we be in all of it? How can we experience all of it? How can we let it all move through us and stay grounded and just be present and take one step in front of the other? Because at the end of the day, in these manifestation processes, we don't know. I have no idea what it's going to be like when I am here with my kids and something happens and I don't know what to do because this man that I have relied on for this long to co-parent, be in my life with me isn't here. I don't know how I'll handle some of those things. I don't know what's going to happen when shit hits the fan that he would have normally been here to do something, but we'll figure it out. Right? Everything is figure outable. And if we focus on the worry, then we won't get to the beautiful, beautiful pleasure, because on the other side of this, I already feel so much pleasure and freedom and love and joy. And my heart is expanding more and more and more every single day, and way more peace in my life. So I think this is really, I just want to say this, like, if you're in this place where you are questioning And I can almost see you. I can see you. I can see some of you in my face, in my eyes, my vision right now. I can feel you. Those of you who can't even see, I can feel so many. There are so many of you listening right now who are in this place. And it takes a shit ton of courage, but it takes a shit ton of courage to walk your path no matter what your path is. And so, the question really becomes like, in 10 years time, if you looked back at this point, would you feel like, yes, I've just had the most amazing 10 years with the most amazing people in my life and the most amazing experiences, and I got to travel and do all these things? Or are you going to look back and go, yeah, I probably should have shifted things then. I probably should have let go of things then. If I had let go of things then and I called new things in, this would not be what my life looks like. And we can't call new things in. It's like, if you want clothes, if you want to get some new clothes, go clean out your closet, right? We have to make space for the new things to come. If we're already too full, we can't allow, right? If we have a glass of water that's already full, no more water is going to go. It's just going to overflow, right? So we need to create the space. We need to let go of that what's no longer serving us so that we can call in what we want. So if you are in that place, dig deep and ask yourself the question, like, is this where I want to be in 10 years? Do I want to be still having the same conversations, the same arguments, the same problems? Do I still want to feel neglected and frustrated and unsatisfied and unconnected and miserable and sad and alone? Because that's where I know so many of you are. He was, right? Is that where you want to live, or do you want to choose something new? So that's my thoughts for you today. Big news. And I'm telling you because it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I know it's going to be a part of the walk that I have in my life moving forward. I know I will talk more about it and the experience of it. I think we don't talk about it enough. And so that's why so many of us stay trapped. And I know that for me as a woman, the story has been, of course, that you stay married and you make it work and you do these things. And, I know so many women who stay for the kids and stay till the end, or the kids leave and then they're fucking miserable and empty. And I'm going to say this like dry, quite literally, right? Like sexless and dry. And like the life force energy has just been fucking sucked out of you. And again, it's not necessarily that it's the other person. The other person could be amazing. And for some of you, you could probably go figure this out within your marriage. Right? Some of you probably could go and recreate what you desire if you start to look at the deeper things and these attachment theories and all these different, trauma bonds and all these things that are going on. For some of you, it will work. And I know I have some really great friends who've been in the same position as me in the same last 3 years. We've been working through this, and 2 of them have completely changed their marriage. So it's not that you can do this work and not shift it within the relationship. And if it's not working for you, and if it's really not working for you, it's okay to walk away. It's okay. It's more than okay. And I'm going to say as well, actually, on my journey through this, I've spoken to many, 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 and I mean, just generally in life, right? Like, what is it? 50% of marriages end up in divorce right now. So if you're married, you got half a chance to end up in that statistic. And there's not one person, there's not one human being that I have spoken to, man or woman, that has come out the other side of a separation or a divorce and been like, I regret that. Not one. So if you're in this position and you're thinking about it, first of all, please reach out. Like, if there's any way that I can support you, I'm happy to do that. I'm actually currently calling in 3 one-on-one clients to deeply work this process. Actually, I have a process that'll take about 3 months to get through, and we will clear your relationship with the way that your emotions trigger off, that will completely change the way that you show up in your life. It will completely transform you if you show up and you actually do the things. I know people's lives have changed drastically, and it has definitely been a huge freaking part. I will tell you, of the 3 people I was just telling you about that have transformed our lives through our relationships, the other 2 are married. All 3 of us have gone through this process, and it's transformational. And so if you're really wanting to start to live your dreams, and you really want to let go of the shit that's not working for you, and you really want to clear your baggage and clear your emotional drama and all the things that are just like draining you in your life and stopping you from living your absolutely fucking amazing, blissful, joyful, loving, full of juiciness life that you desire, reach out. I would love to support you. I haven't opened up my books like this for a while, actually, for this type of work. And I am feeling deeply called to help some people on this level, because I know how much my life has completely changed, not only from this process, but from what has happened because of it, and because I chose to say yes to myself. And it's not easy, and you shouldn't do it by yourself. And I've had support more support than I can even begin to tell you on this podcast. So many of the people have been on the podcast. Like, go listen to the ways that I have completely shifted my life. It's not been overnight, but it happens. And the first decision is to make the choice that you don't want to live in that space anymore. If you're in a miserable marriage or a miserable experience of your life, or you're not completely living your dreams, or you're not living your life to your fullest, and you're not really feeling into the most amazing experience that you could possibly have on this planet, then it's time to do something about it. Truly. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, seriously, what's the point of living on this planet if we aren't really experiencing life to its fullest? And we're just going by as robots. And I've done it for years and I chose not to. And I don't want to live that way anymore. And I would like to believe that those of you who are here and listening, you don't want to live that way either. So reach out to me if that's interesting to you. Let's play. You can reach out to me on email, carrie@carrienorley.com. You can find me on all my socials, probably Facebook Messenger is one of the best, or Insta, actually. And let's play. I know there's some of you out there that are ready to completely shift your story and your life and find more intimacy and joy and abundance and change your business and everything. It's all here for you if that's what you desire. So I think I want to actually finalize by saying generational, clearing generational wounds. It's a big thing, and I invite you to really start looking at how, if this is where you're at as well, invite you to start looking at, how did your parents relate? How did your grandparents relate? And where are the similarities into where you're showing up? And start to think, like, does this serve me? Does this serve the relationship? And I've also come to the realization as well that we don't talk enough about this. We don't talk enough about generational dynamics and how we can shift them. And if you ask me, the greatest legacy I can give to this entirety of this world, and I give a lot, I'm here week in and week out, I give a lot, is to shift our stuff, right? Because when we can start to shift our generational stuff, I already see the difference in my kids. I can already see the difference in my kids, and my kids are already making different choices. And we can shift how we show up in this world, and we can shift this next generation. And like, I can't wait to see what my boys, because I am choosing to raise boys that are very different to how we were raised. And it's not shameful. There's nothing bad about it. Right. So like, please, like, take all of that away. It's just how it was, right? We were taught that this is, men are supposed to go out and hunt and, and do the things, and women are supposed to stay at home and be in the, baskets and the weaving and taking care of the kids. And these dynamics didn't shift. And there's so much more beyond that, right? And what comes into that, and the masculinity and the femininity and the toxic masculinity, the toxic femininity, and demasculating our men, and, and being over masculine as feminine. There's so many dynamics that go into this, that we have the ability to shift and change. And it starts by you showing up and doing it for you first. And then we can start to change the generations. And then when these kids start to be leaders, like, if you have kids, like, what kind of leaders do you want them to be? What kind of people do you want them to be? And if what you're representing isn't that person, then change it, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to follow you. They're going to do whatever you do. They follow your actions, not your words. So if your actions are not representing the type of life that you want them to have, or the type of people that you want them to be, then change it. It is the biggest gift that you can give yourself and this planet and your kids. Yeah, that's what I want to say. And I'm going to talk more about it. And I'm going to talk about it more, I'm going to say shamelessly, right? Because it is a shameless thing. And so many of us carry so much guilt and shame and judgment and obligation and expectation and all these things into relationships that don't need to exist. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Please, however this has touched you, I really would love, this was a big conversation today, and how, if it's touched you, if you are one of those people that's looking for help, please reach out. Even if it's not for working with me, just say hello and let me know that you're there. I love hearing from you, all of you listeners around the world. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being here even in these vulnerable moments for me, to moving forward, to creating freedom, to creating dreams, and to looking at family. It's not like, I keep saying as well, like, Hugh's still in my life. He's still the father of my children, and we're still a family. It's just, it looks different, and I think that we get to change the way that dynamics look, and it doesn't make it a bad thing. It just makes it what it is. And so as I journey this, and I journey it, is, I'm happy to share the story. I'm happy to share the tools that I come across. That's what the show is really all about. So you'll be hearing more and more and more about this, because it doesn't just show up in our parenting and in our relationships. The same kinds of things are showing up in money and finances and things like that. And I can promise you, the stuff that went on with my marriage definitely affected the things that were in our money stuff, right? Everything happens across the board. So be willing to look at your life and look at where you're suffering and where you're creating your own suffering, and choose differently. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for being here, and I will see you sometime soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you love what you heard, please help us get this message out to more people, because together we rise. Please review it, subscribe to the show, and share on social media. When you share, please tag me. On Insta, I'm at Carrie Norley, and on Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Carrie Norley 1, or Carrie Kaplan Norley is my official name there. Please come and connect with me on social media and say hello. I love hearing from my listeners. And thank you so much for your support. I'm so excited to help you bring in the new wealth.